pho is super easy to make. And I'm not talking about shortcut pho or like hack pho. I'm talking about a legit bowl of pho is very easy. And to me, it just breaks down into 3 simple steps. The broth, seasoning the broth, and the plate up. When I'm making the broth, I start out with beef bones, preferably something with marrow. I think a good ratio to start is around 2 pounds of bones for every gallon of water. So if you're making 2 gallons, you want to have 4 pounds of bones. You're making 4 gallons, you want to have 8 pounds of bones. Use that ratio to whatever size batch you're going to make. The bones need to get blanched, so that just means boil them. So we're going to boil them for about 8 to 15 minutes, depending on the size of the bone. You should see lots of scum coming up, lots of foam coming up. And after that point, we'll take the bones out of the water, discard the water, and then wash the bones. And I literally mean wash them. Put them in a pot of water or run them under water and use your hands and rub around. Be careful, some edges are sharp. After the bone is very clean, put it back into a clean pot with new water and boil those bones for a long time, as long as possible. 8 hours is preferably. I'm gonna turn these on low and cook them overnight. If you don't wanna leave the stove on overnight, you could also cook them in the morning, chill it, and then make the pho the next day. That totally works. If you didn't have the time or wanted to rush it, you could also use a pressure cooker. That also works really well. You just can't do a big batch doing it that way. The bone has been cooking overnight. I got to the market late yesterday, so they didn't have as many bones as I wanted to. So instead, I'm just gonna use a big old piece of beef to help give it some more beef flavor. So the beef shank is going in now. With most Vietnamese dishes, you don't really want to have an overly tender cut of beef. You want it to have some chew. So I'm not going to cook this shank long, just about an hour and a half or 2 hours, just till it's cooked through. And once the meat is cooked through, I'm going to pull it out and cool it down as quickly as possible. So I have a little bit of ice water here. I'm going to cool that down, and getting it out of the broth and cooling it down quickly will help its color as it cools down. It will help it from stop turning so gray. And now onto the seasoning of the soup. First, we're going to take our onions and ginger and char them. You can char them just in a hot pan or with a torch. You want to char them deeply or right over the burner. After I've charred all my vegetables, I'm going to toast my spices as well, which is cinnamon, fennel seed, black cardamom, star anise, and coriander. I also have some black pepper here as well. Once they get very fragrant and I can hear some popping, I'll pour them out. I'm going to put the large spices back inside just to cook them a little bit further. The black cardamom pod, I like to hit it a little bit to release the aroma. At this point, I can throw in all of my aromatics, my onion, my ginger, my spices, and my salt, sugar, MSG, and fish sauce as well. You know, it's interesting, when we say pho, pho just refers to the noodle itself, which is a flat rice noodle, not actually the soup. Even though it's become shorthand, you say pho, people understand. But really what we're making today is Phở Bò, which is beef noodle soup, bò meaning beef. Once you start adding all your seasonings, you should taste it every 30 minutes. And if you feel like, okay, there's enough ginger, pull the ginger out. If you feel like there's enough onion, pull the onion out. Or leave it all in, it's up to you. If you feel like the spice level's good but you want more ginger, just remove the spices and keep cooking it. Or vice versa, if there's too much ginger, start taking some ginger out. This has been going for about an hour and a half or 2 hours with the spices inside. This is good now, so I'm gonna strain it. If you taste it and it just seems too dark or too strong or too salty, you can always add a splash of water too. So from this point, you could leave it just like this. If you want to remove some of the beef fat, you can skim some of the beef fat on there. I got no problem with the fat. I'm cool with that. Because I don't have a chinois or a very fine mesh strainer, I have a little hand strainer, so I'm just going to go in a little bit and skim out whatever else I can. You don't have to do that, but just gets your stock more clear. I mean, at this point, the broth's done. It's that easy. Basically, just boil some bones and put some flavor in it, and you're good to go. I'm gonna put a little bit more salt in here. All right, let's get the garnishes for the plate up ready. For the plate up, we're gonna start with our finishing garnish, which is just some sliced white onion, sliced green onion, and some chopped cilantro. You kind of mix that all up, give it a toss, and that's gonna go on the side until you're ready. So we need to get our garnishing tray ready. And that's gonna be a big handful of bean sprouts, whatever herbs you have. I have Thai basil, cilantro, rao om, or a rice patty herb, and sawtooth coriander. I'm gonna add some lime wedges, some hoisin sauce, some chopped chili, some chinsu or tongut. For this bowl of pho, I'm doing 3 different kinds of beef. You could totally do 1, you don't need to do 3, but that's up to you. I have some beef ball here. I'm just gonna cut that quickly and throw it into the pho broth to heat up. The shaved beef shank. And the raw beef as well. This raw beef is rump steak. That's commonly used in what they had in the market too. Of course, if you want to kick this up, you could always use filet or ribeye or sirloin or any kind of nice proper steak, but that's just not something we get around here too often. To assemble, I'm gonna put some green onion in some hot water. The bottoms I had reserved. I'll give that a couple seconds in the water. So I'm gonna take a little steamer basket. I'm gonna take my pho noodle, put it inside. I'll dip my noodles inside, just to warm them. Get all the water out. So once the noodles are in the bowl, I'm gonna top it with the shaved beef shank, the raw sliced beef as well. We'll top it with our onion mix. We'll ladle in the beef balls and the hot pho broth. See, easy as pie. Now, how do we eat it? With my hoisin sauce, I'm gonna mix in some tung ut or chinsu. It's so fragrant. We'll throw in some bean sprouts, sawtooth coriander, and just tear up all the herbs, whatever you like. I like them all. If you can find that rao om, it is so fragrant. It's such a cool herb. I love the aroma so much. Do a squirt of lime in the broth. I also like to put lime in my dipping sauce too. And I'll do a few chilies. And I'll just take my meat as I go and dip in here. Make sure I get some of the chinsu, a little bit of the hoisin sauce. Now I know in America, a lot of people just start squirting sriracha and hoisin sauce right in the broth. But I didn't spend all that time boiling the bone and seasoning it to make it taste like sriracha water. But you do you. You eat it however you want to eat it, I don't care. You want one? Well, I never said pho is the fastest thing to make, but I think it's pretty darn easy. And I think if you haven't cooked much Vietnamese food, this is a good place to start. It's an easy dish to make. Sam rồi.